My sister-in-law became obsessed with my wife's pregnancy and tried to walk into the hospital claiming to be the baby's grandmother. Now my brother is threatening to sue for custody of our newborn. I, 41M, have been married to my wife Lisa, 39F, for 15 years. We've wanted kids for as long as we can remember, but it took a long time to get here. IVF, miscarriages, years of appointments and heartbreak and trying not to lose hope. I don't want to dwell on all of it because it's not really the point of this post, but I want people to understand the weight of what that journey cost us before I get to the part where everything fell apart. We lost 2 pregnancies before Emma. Lisa went through treatments that were physically brutal and emotionally worse. There were months where we barely talked about it because talking about it hurt too much, and months where we talked about nothing else. By the time we finally got a viable pregnancy confirmed, we had been through enough that we cried at the first ultrasound just from the relief of seeing a heartbeat. So when I say this was the happiest time of our lives, I mean it in the specific way that happiness feels when you've worked for it and grieved for it and weren't sure you were ever going to get there. We told the family at a dinner. Ultrasound photo, champagne, the whole thing. My brother Mike, 43M, and his wife Karen, 40F, were there with my parents. Everyone hugged and toasted and seemed genuinely thrilled. But Karen's reaction was off from the start. Her smile froze the moment Lisa showed the ultrasound. She went quiet and just stared at Lisa's belly during dinner, barely saying a word. We found out later she'd had a miscarriage a few months before and hadn't told anyone. I felt for her when I learned that. Pregnancy loss is real grief, and I would never minimize it. But what happened in the weeks and months after that dinner was something different from grief. But within a day, she had cornered Lisa in the kitchen, asking how far along she was, whether it was a boy or girl, whether she could feel the baby kick. She started texting Lisa constantly, pictures of baby clothes she wanted to buy, requests to come to appointments, messages saying she needed to bond with the baby early so she could heal. At first, Lisa tried to be gracious about it. She understood loss. She'd been through her own. She texted back politely, thanked Karen for the clothes, explained gently that we were keeping appointments private for now. Karen's responses would swing from warm to wounded to frantic within the same conversation. "I just need to be involved," she wrote once. "If I can't be involved, I don't know what I'll do." By the second trimester, she was showing up unannounced with bags of maternity supplies. "I know what you're going through," she told Lisa, eyes glassy. "I lost mine, but this can be healing for me too." Lisa was kind about it, but clear. We appreciated the thought, but we needed space. Karen cried and said we were being selfish. Mike called me afterward, asking me to cut her some slack. I told him I understood she was grieving, but Lisa's pregnancy wasn't therapy for someone else's loss. He said I was being rigid. I said I was being a husband. Then it got genuinely frightening. Lisa noticed Karen's car parked across the street during her morning walks. Twice in 1 week, same spot, Karen waving like it was completely normal when Lisa spotted her, like a neighbor out for some air, not someone who had followed a pregnant woman from her house. Lisa came home shaking both times. She started varying her routes, cutting her walks short, checking over her shoulder. She was 7 months pregnant and scared to leave her own house. I confronted Mike directly and he laughed it off, said Karen was just excited, said we were being paranoid. My parents called too, asking us not to exclude family. I told them what Lisa had described. My mom said Karen was probably just out for a drive and it was a coincidence. My dad said I needed to have more compassion. I said I had plenty of compassion, and I also had a pregnant wife who was afraid to take a walk. Third trimester, it escalated again. Lisa had a Braxton Hicks episode, and we went to the hospital for monitoring. Scary, but ultimately fine, just a precaution. Karen called me within the hour, asking if the baby was okay and saying she needed to come. Mike had told her. I said no visitors, and we'd be in touch when things settled down. Karen texted me 4 more times while we were still in the monitoring room. The next day, I got an email from Karen. She had written a birth plan, an actual document, formatted with her name on it like a title page. It listed her demands and numbered points: to be notified the moment Lisa went into labor, to be present in the delivery room, to cut the umbilical cord, to hold the baby before anyone else, including the grandparents. She mentioned she had researched surrogacy rights and family birth support entitlements. She said she saw herself as a co-guardian in spirit. I read it twice to make sure I understood what I was looking at. Then I forwarded it to my lawyer. We blocked Karen on everything that week and told the family there would be no contact until she got real professional help. My parents acted like we had declared war. Mike said we were punishing Karen for grieving. I said we were protecting Lisa, who was 8 months pregnant and visibly deteriorating from the stress of all of this. We skipped the family baby shower and had our own small one. Just close friends, a few of Lisa's cousins, no one from Mike's side. Lisa cried when it was over, but happy tears. She said it was the first time in months she'd been able to just be pregnant without bracing for something. Then Lisa's water broke at 36 weeks. Everything went fast after that. Emergency C-section, cord complication, the kind of medical crisis where you don't think about anything except the people in the room with you. Emma arrived healthy. 4 pounds, 14 ounces, screaming, perfect. I held her and couldn't speak. I called my parents. Mike got a text. Karen showed up at the hospital hours later, after visiting hours. She tried to get through security by telling one nurse she was Emma's grandmother and another that she was a family support doula. She was screaming in the lobby by the time security got involved. Police were called. A report was taken. She left. Mike texted me that night to call me an asshole for banning his wife from seeing her niece. I didn't respond. Emma came home 2 weeks ago. She is perfect. She weighs just under 5 pounds still, and she fits in the crook of my arm like she was made for it. Lisa is recovering from the C-section, moving slowly, doing everything she can. We're exhausted in the way new parents are exhausted, and also in this other way that's harder to describe, the exhaustion of having been afraid for 7 months and not knowing when it's safe to stop. Last night at 2 a.m., the doorbell rang. I knew before I even got to the door. I don't know how I knew, but I did. Something in my stomach dropped the moment I heard it. Karen was standing on our porch in a coat she'd clearly thrown on over pajamas, holding a car seat she'd filled with baby clothes. She had driven here in the middle of the night with a packed car seat. I couldn't sleep, she said. Just let me hold her, just once, please. Her voice was very calm, which somehow made it worse than if she'd been screaming. I told her to leave. Lisa had already heard the doorbell and taken Emma to the back bedroom. I stood in the doorway and told Karen clearly that if she didn't leave, I was calling the police. She sat down on the porch steps and started crying. She stayed there for 20 minutes until the officers arrived. She told them she was just visiting family. They took her statement and told her to go home. This morning, Mike showed up in person. He stood in my doorway and told me I was poisoning everyone against them, that Karen just wanted to love the baby, that her miscarriage had broken her and I owed her some compassion. He said his lawyer had mentioned there might be legal options, something about aunt rights or grandparent adjacent claims in certain states. I looked at my brother, someone I have known my whole life, and told him to leave my property. My parents are calling me cruel. My wife is telling me to get a restraining order. I am 3 weeks into being a father and I have not slept more than 2 hours consecutively since Emma was born, and I feel like I am losing my mind trying to protect my family from people who are supposed to be my family. I read them so Lisa wouldn't have to. In them, Karen wrote that God had put this baby in Lisa for her too, that Lisa was a vessel, essentially, for something that was meant for Karen. She wrote that she had felt Emma kick in her dreams before we even knew we were pregnant. She described a spiritual connection to our daughter that she said superseded the biological one. She said she forgave us for shutting her out because she understood we didn't know yet what Emma meant to both of them. She had enclosed a photograph. It took me a moment to understand what I was looking at. It was her old ultrasound image, scanned and digitally altered to include Emma's hospital ID bracelet photo alongside it, a composite. We still don't know how she got the hospital bracelet image. It had been in a photo Lisa sent to her own mother, which means it traveled through family channels and ended up with Karen somehow. I showed Lisa one letter. She made it halfway through and then walked to the bathroom. We photographed everything, put the originals in a folder, and brought them to the lawyer the next morning. That evening, while I was at the pharmacy picking up Lisa's post-surgery medication, she'd had an emergency C-section I hadn't mentioned, cord complication, terrifying. Mike showed up at the house. Lisa was home alone with Emma. He banged on the door, and when she opened it slightly, he pushed inside, smelling like he'd been drinking. He grabbed my shirt when I got home and told me I had always hogged everything, and now I was hogging a perfect baby that Karen deserved a chance with. Lisa called 911 from the bedroom. Mike left when he heard the sirens. Police came, took a report. No arrest, but it was added to the restraining order file. Lisa was shaking when I got inside. Emma was asleep in her bassinet, completely unaware. My parents texted that night to say Karen had hurt herself. Pills, they said, and that she blamed me. I don't know what to do with that information. I genuinely don't. I have sympathy for someone in that much pain. I also cannot let that sympathy override what I have to do to keep my daughter safe. The restraining order hearing is next week. The hearing went the way it needed to go. Karen's lawyer argued that her behavior was driven by grief, not malice. Karen testified, crying, saying she loved us and had never meant any harm. The judge reviewed the hospital footage, the doorbell camera recording of the 2 a.m. visit, photographs of the letters, and the police report from Mike's visit to our house. He granted a 6-month restraining order, no contact, 500 feet. Karen screamed when the order was read. Mike got her out of the courtroom. My parents cornered me in the parking lot afterward. They said I had won my war and asked if I was happy now. They said the stress of the hearing might cause Karen to lose a pregnancy. She'd apparently told them she might be pregnant again. I said I hoped that was true and that I hoped she got the help she needed, and I walked to my car. In the days since, a few things have become clear to me that weren't before. My brother knew, not just that Karen was struggling in a general sense, but the specifics, the unannounced visits, the hospital attempt, the letters. He knew, and he covered for it. He told me Karen was just excited. He told my parents Lisa was being overly sensitive. He called me paranoid to my face in August, while his wife was parked across the street from our house, watching my pregnant wife walk by. I don't know if he thought Karen would eventually calm down and this would all become a funny story, or if he was actively choosing to protect her behavior because the alternative was having to do something about it. Either way, the result was the same. I spent 7 months being told I was overreacting while something genuinely dangerous was building. The night he pushed into our house and grabbed my shirt, Lisa was in the back bedroom holding Emma. She had called 911 from there, whispering so Mike wouldn't hear her. She told me afterward that she had put herself between Emma's bassinet and the bedroom door while she waited for the police to arrive. She didn't know if Mike was going to keep escalating. She didn't know what was going to happen. She stood there with our 3-week-old daughter and prepared to fight her way out if she had to. I think about that a lot. My parents enabled it by treating each incident as a misunderstanding rather than a pattern. When you see every tree individually, you miss the forest. By the time the forest was impossible to ignore, they were already too far in to admit it. I don't say that to be harsh about them. They are older people who love their family and genuinely did not understand what they were watching. But love and good intentions don't cancel out the harm that came from looking away. I don't think any of them are evil. I think they were in over their heads with someone who needed real clinical help, and they managed it the way a lot of families manage things they don't understand, by minimizing, by asking the people with the most to lose to absorb the cost of keeping the peace. That cost was paid by Lisa and by Emma before she was even born. Lisa and I have decided to move. Not immediately, not running, just deliberately. We want a fresh start in a place where Emma doesn't grow up knowing that her first weeks were like this. Our house has too many memories of doorbells ringing at wrong hours, of checking the Ring camera before answering the door, of Lisa looking over her shoulder on walks. We've been looking at neighborhoods about an hour away. Nothing final yet, but we've found a few places we like, and looking at them feels like something forward is possible. My parents have asked to meet Emma. We haven't said yes or no. We're taking it slowly. They are her grandparents, and I believe their blindness came from love rather than malice. They genuinely didn't understand what Karen's behavior was building toward, or they understood and didn't know how to face it. That's different from not caring. I'm not ready to close that door permanently, but I'm also not opening it until I see something real change in how they talk about what happened. Mike I haven't spoken to since the hearing. He sent one text saying he hoped I was happy now. I didn't respond. I don't know when or whether I will. Karen is in mandated therapy as a condition of the restraining order. I hope it helps her. I mean that without sarcasm. What I saw in those letters was someone in profound pain, the kind of grief that had curdled into something that stopped making sense, that had stopped being about her own loss and started being about taking something from us. I don't wish that kind of pain on anyone. but it cannot be my family's wound to absorb. Emma is 6 weeks old. She has started to smile, real smiles now, not the reflex ones, and when she does it with her whole face and her eyes crinkle the same way Lisa's do, everything else goes quiet for a minute. The fear, the exhaustion, the months of doorbells and letters and courthouse parking lots, it all just goes quiet. That minute is what all of this has always been about. I'm going to keep protecting it. We are going to be okay. I really appreciate you watching until the end. Please consider subscribing for more content. Until next time.